So, Greg, welcome. Thanks for coming. I'm super excited to be working on a Bitcoin session here. So one of the great things about working in the ZK space, and especially at RISC Zero, is that you get to work across all ecosystems. We're really strong in the Bitcoin space, in fact, and you may have seen last week that we had a whole series of marketing about our presence there. I think one of the reasons for that is our security profile, and certainly I think an ingredient in our partnership. Really like the fact that we're talking to you guys because you're not just another Bitcoin project. You've got all these really interesting angles here as well, including the Ethereum linkage. So I think without further ado, I'll let you introduce yourself and your project.
Sure. Thanks, Phil. Hi, guys. I'm Greg. I'm the lead engineer with Bob, working with the team now for a number of years. Same as our relationship with RISC Zero. We go back a ways. Previously working on some Bitcoin bridges for like the last 5 years or so, and so we've always been in the Bitcoin space and been heavily interested by the tech there, and obviously contributed to BitVM, and that's our kind of main project right now and pathway into the hybrid rollup narrative that we're going for. Yeah, so Bob, to give you the quick introduction, is what we like to call a hybrid layer 2. We've contributed quite a lot to BitVM. We're live on Ethereum. We have been for a year now as an OpStack rollup. So right now we're vanilla OpStack, pre-fraud proof. And our plan this year is to kind of go the hybrid route where we embed BitVM and we have a joint security model between Ethereum and Bitcoin. So our users can directly rely on Bitcoin security to verify our rollup, but in the end, we'll keep our DA on Ethereum. So I'm excited to share a bit how this is going to work with sort of the ZK element and RISC Zero and things like that under the hood. And it's, yeah, going to be a good year.
Yeah. Back to my point about the fact that you're a particularly interesting project. I mean, you've partnered early and well with other projects. So some of our partners are your partners also. You're partnering with Fiamma. You're partnering with Babylon. So yeah, great to have those synergies. Can you tell us a little bit about your ZK journey?
Yeah, I'd like to touch on the partnerships first. We've recognized the value of good strategic partnerships. So Fiamma, we work together on the core BitVM infrastructure. We have an event tonight with Fiamma called BitVM Night, so please come along to that if you're excited to learn more. We'll demo some stuff there. And then Babylon, of course, are super good project and lots of interesting tech, and we're going to use them to embed the Bitcoin security on the Bob side. In terms of ZK, this is where it kind of gets interesting. So for a hybrid rollup, with BitVM we have to use ZK. This is how to give like the quick primer of how BitVM works. It's sort of a similar optimistic fraud-proof system for verification of Bob on Bitcoin. And to do that, we use ZK, so this Groth 16 proofs under the hood, provided by, for example, RISC Zero, and that gets compiled to Bitcoin script and verified on Bitcoin. I won't elaborate into all the details, but there's some pretty interesting tech and a lot of innovations there that happened over the last year. But with a hybrid narrative, we are rolling up to 2 systems, both Ethereum and Bitcoin. So I think what I want to touch on here especially is the relationship with Kelley. So we have this finality system for Bitcoin, for BitVM. This is also going to extend onto the Ethereum side as well, where we can use the same notion of finality through our ZK prover and roll up to Ethereum as a Validium. I can go a bit more into the depths of how we're doing that, if that's okay?
Yeah, why don't you? Yeah, and then I'll say yeah, please do, if you can carry on.
Yeah, so we touched on the partnerships. We're quite aligned with Babylon. We have announced partnership. We're going to be one of the first Bitcoin validator services. So native Bitcoin stakers will secure the Bob chain when they go live with mainnet this summer. How it's going to work under the hood is we are going to prove the finality of Babylon in a ZK VM program. Again, this is something similar to what is provided by RISC Zero, using standard Rust libraries such as Tendermint, Rust Bitcoin, and Zeth. So we're using Zeth as well to prove Bob blocks. So we have a sort of 3-way light client construction, and this is going to effectively prove that Bob's state is valid. We take this proof, we bundle it in through a ZK VM application, and as I mentioned, this is compiled into a Groth 16 proof, and then compiled into Bitcoin script for the BitVM side. What then we're looking to do, for example, with Kahlua, is then to use that same validity proof to also prove to Ethereum that we're valid through Bitcoin stakers. So we validate that Babylon correctly indexed the blockchain, which is backed by proof of stake based on Bitcoin stakers. And then this proof is used on the Ethereum L1 to then satisfy the state root. So then we can prove that on Ethereum that Bob has finalized in the same way we're using for BitVM. So it's pretty cool that with the same tech, we can utilize that for like both worlds. We can align both Bitcoin and Ethereum and bring Bitcoin security to our rollup.
And yeah, it's actually, it's interesting to dig deeper on Kahlua. So, for those in the audience who are already familiar with Kahlua, we announced it back at DevCon in October. And the way we announced it was a ZK hybrid rollup stack. So based on optimism, but with some innovation around the proposer challenger model, and then the ability to prove a dispute with ZK. When we announced that, we said, look, this isn't the right way to do everything, but it's a new option, and it's a great way to do things because you can have an optimistic cost profile to a transaction, but you can also have fast finality, and you can then take some decisions around the security approach. But what we also said is that we think a lot of people will be moving to full ZK rollups over time, especially as the costs have been dropping. And you've probably seen from Jeremy's presentation, costs are dropping, I think, way faster than anybody expected. We're getting gains of 3 to 4 times per quarter. Compound that up, add in the effect of our work with Binius, think about what the impact of the proving market is going to be. So costs are really dropping fast, and we're getting people very interested in full ZK rollups. So what you've been talking about is actually not the Kahlua that we've announced, but it's a more of a full ZK rollup. We'll be saying more about that soon. So this is kind of a preview, but yeah, we're now done with the full rollup.
Yeah, because we've been following you a bit on this journey. We were super excited to work, and we looked into Kahlua when you were first kind of demoing it to us. We thought it was a really interesting concept, the way you could do the ZK validity proofs instead of a full validity rollup. And then just to back up, we were saying, well, one thing we realized, so we've been working on BitVM for a while now. In order to prove the Bob state on Bitcoin, we needed to prove the security of every Bob block. So that construction didn't really work with us, and this is when I think we did have a conversation about this, and maybe why you kind of adopted an additional direction where we could have the full validity. But that obviously now kind of lends itself to both worlds, so people can choose either the full validity rollup route, or they can still do the optimistic sort of fraud-proof game. But it's really cool that you can have both, and different Ethereum rollups can choose whatever profile they want to go with, depending on cost.
Yeah. Okay, so like I say, you guys are super interesting. You're covering Bitcoin, you're covering Ethereum, you've got all these cool partnerships, you've got great ways of approaching security with BitVM, with Babylon, with ZK rollup. I think we've probably filled people's heads already with the technical story. You want to talk a little bit about some of the cool things you can then do with this once you've got the BitVM bridge created? Because obviously now I think you can have native swaps, for example, between the Ethereum world and the Bitcoin world. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, some alpha, there will be a Bob BTC based on BitVM, so this is through our native bridge. We're going to have this native asset with the same trust assumptions of BitVM. And if you didn't know, so the BitVM trust assumptions right now are 1 of N, the best possible security we can get for a Bitcoin wrapped asset. You compare this with WBTC, which is pure custodial, and TBTC, which is 2/3 majority or something like that. So yeah, we're super excited to have that sort of native asset on our chain, and it's going to enable a lot of use cases. Additionally, we're working closely with Babylon, as I said, so we can get this really cool flywheel effect with Babylon, where we can also use Bob BTC or other Bitcoin staked assets to have these Bitcoin LSTs that live on Bob. Indeed, most of our TVL right now is Bitcoin LSTs based on WBTC, TBTC, etc. And once Babylon validates us, which is why we're kind of integrating them into our security, we can use also Bitcoin assets to kind of have this flywheel effect where we pay incentives to Babylon through sequencer fees. Those fees then are kind of shared amongst the stakers of Bitcoin on the Bitcoin side. And that attracts more Bitcoin stakes. So users would lock up more BTC, that goes back into Bob, convert that into Bob BTC or some of these Bitcoin LSDs. That's used in DEXs, lending, all our DeFi applications, and generate additional yield, which again goes back into Babylon. So I think we're going to see some really cool use cases with Babylon there. We're excited to kind of go further in that partnership. And if you're interested in more details about sort of what we're targeting on the DeFi side, I can connect you to some of my team, or I can have a discussion with you. And again, BitVM night tonight, please come along. There's going to be lots of cool stuff there that we discuss related to that.
You could, talking about cool stuff, I mean, you could at some stage have off-chain computation as the basis of something that changes like we're having with Hashflow. So, you know, another potentially fantastic angle to your ecosystem. Cool. Anything else?
No.
Right. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.